So thanks very much. That's really insightful. I feel like a lot of my questions have kind of been answered by those slide decks. That's really great. But just talk. You're all addressing slightly different parts of the market, right? It strikes me there's some crossover, but there's also you're going into slightly different areas. Just talk around, kind of characterize, if you can, the opportunities and the challenges in each of the parts of the market you address in terms of, funding, decision making, all that good stuff, if you can. Jeff, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure, yeah. When we started our company, we focused on the multi-dwelling unit space. That was the most underserved segment. They have the stupidest buildings, I have to say, in the market. Most prop tech companies focus on commercial industrial. One of the reasons why they shy away from multifamily, it's just a complex ownership management structure. And our company came out of the property management space and hired a lot of tech people to solve that. So we understood those challenges of management versus equity ownership to solve that. And it happens to be in that space that in metropolitan areas we predominantly find high-rise multifamily buildings, apartment buildings. Over 60% of the energy and carbon production is coming through those buildings. So we're having a dramatic impact solving, the issues that they have using a low-cost, high-impact technology like LoRaWAN.
Okay. And Violetta, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think we're split between 50% residential in Europe in general, and then public and commercial spaces similar to hospitality, offices, and public space. I think the most challenges we find, the property management and ownership structure is one, because it's very different country by country. But essentially some have a stake in the ownership of based on the flat size. Others are completely dependent on the management company that they have in place. But I think what we see more as an issue is on the public side, for example, where we deal with schools and hospitals, and they're usually very old and obsolete buildings that drain a lot of energy, is that the decision-making process is very slow, and it is driven by the government. So it runs into tenders or essentially into longer decision-making processes, whereas we can save energy today. So I think from the markets we serve, the most challenged one is the one that deals with public buildings.
Okay, Stefan, are you finding the same thing? Do you find yourself kind of by default steering clear of those tenders and this kind of stuff and going for the private sector, which can make this stuff happen, I guess, quicker?
Yeah, so we are mainly addressing the commercial, either retail or offices. The solution is running over 1 million square meter, and we see that the adoption rate and the interest are a lot larger on the commercial side, because there are direct economical benefits from it, and it is on the C level of most property companies that they need to be sustainable, so on, and and then for some metering we have about 60,000 apartments, but we haven't done these integrations yet on the energy optimization, since it is from our side, it is kind of what Jeff says, that there is less of optimization tools on the residential side, which our tool isn't the best for at the moment. But so it's mostly commercial buildings for the optimization part.
Okay, and Stefan, maybe we'll stick with you, but just in terms of what you're selling, I mean, we saw a range of stuff there, and we're talking, ESG, so it's kind of water, air, environmental kind of metrics, this kind of stuff. What is the kind of hero case that is kind of swinging the deal, if you like, for in a lot of these scenarios?
So that is typically when we are talking to C-level in a corporate, for example, the CFO or the chief sustainability officer, and then we're taking a full portfolio of their buildings, and then we're doing the optimization and reducing the energy consumption with maybe 25% of the full portfolio, and also giving them easier to getting green bonds for the portfolio. So this is really something this is impacting the company on the top level. It is we're trying to clear away from the facility manager or similar, more taking the full portfolio, because this is a strategic decision on board level in most companies, and not an operational thing at the moment.
And Violetta, is that the case then? I mean, because it strikes me as, often with LoRaWAN that it's one kind of hero case which swings the deal, and then you flow in other stuff on the back of that. Is it the full portfolio? You go in at a high level and get the whole thing kind of deployed for max effect, or is it little by little? I guess it depends on customer segment.
Yeah, it does depend on the customer, but essentially everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah.
So energy efficiency or the thermostat, the LoRaWAN thermostat is the first one that people install in our case, because there is a direct KPI you can measure, is the energy that you consume in a building, and you can control it remotely. And you can control it based on the room occupancy, based on a floor occupancy. You can do a lot more scenario building around your building that was not possible with BMS in general. So I think people start with one device, and then as we try to teach them, and something similar to Stefan does, is that air quality and control has to go with energy quality and control. You cannot ventilate a room, open the window, but the heater is usually below it, and then this energy goes to waste.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially the second best product is the combination of energy and air quality that you try to combine.
Okay. And Jeff, you're coming at it slightly differently in terms of that there's no in-house hardware, as it were. You're putting that together a little bit, but you've got this analytics you're selling into, and empowering the kind of the client, whoever that may be. Is that the draw from them? Is that the draw for them? Is that what you go in with and say?
Yeah. No, I mean, we definitely also start from like the C-level down decision maker, like head of sustainability or some type of asset management, has a portfolio of properties, and we have to explain it in financial terms, like how does this increase their net operating income?
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care about LoRaWAN, right? But they want a friction-free deployment. That's where LoRaWAN is going to be helpful. They want something that's going to be low cost. That's where LoRaWAN is going to be helpful. They want something that's going to produce information that's actionable and help the build to become more dispatchable to save that money or earn money from the grid. And that's where LoRaWAN is very, very valuable. So, we're coming in explaining it from a financial point of view, how to make your building more interactive and therefore more cost efficient, and also explain that your building is actually an asset. It can actually create cash by providing a service to the grid. Mm-hmm. And that, that's the hook. We say, okay, how do we do that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you all kind of say that it's got to go from the kind of CFO and the sustainability manager. It's got to go through them rather than the IT department. I write a lot about industrial IoT in factories, and the OT manager on the shop floor who's in charge of the signing things off, and it comes unstuck a little bit. But it sounds to me, Violetta, perhaps you can just respond to that really, to sell into a tech team or an IT team is bad business from your point of view. Do you know what I mean? Is that right?
It takes more time. If you start from the bottom up, so if you start with the technical team, they're very important for integration, for example, into their existing BMS, understanding their BMS and how it works. But essentially, they will get boiled down to the details and start analyzing the technology and why this and not another one and how it works. And they're afraid of change. So it is a change to people who are used to BMS in general. So it's bridging the gap of having both the decision makers on board and then passing the decision on to the technical team, just make it work. Yeah. What works probably quicker, but essentially is also keeping the technical team involved and feeling loved by providing support or the integration or the decoders, payload decoders, and having someone who can assist them to do it together. So I think, the decision comes always from the C level, but essentially there's a lot of work to be done also on the technical side.
Okay, and go on, Stefan.
A question to Jeff. Interesting with your business case, but is there available a flexibility market in the US that, for example, the grid can pay a building owner to decrease the heating during certain hours?
That's a foundational value of our business. It's exactly that. So we're a registered demand response provider. So we're bringing the technology to the building to bring it alive and make it dispatchable, but also as a provider registered on the grid, we're able to monetize those load reductions, and it really comes down to time of use, as you know. So being able to pre-cool the building at the time that the grid needs energy a few hours later, so you can now change set points either in your BMS system or using smart thermostats to raise the set points, and the demand will drop and get paid for that. And it's very it's calculations, it's metrics that are transparent. and being able to be an intermediary to monetize that for the buildings, and now we're able to do that actually for consumers in certain markets in the U.S. where they have AMI meters, smart meters, is really valuable because now there's an incentive to be green, so to speak.
Okay. Now, in Europe, or at least what I'm aware, is still under discussion for the flexibility market, especially how the property owners should get back because they are kind of overheating or so on. So yeah, interesting to see that US are in front there.
So I understand that correctly. So the US is way ahead there. I mean, that's something we're waiting on in Europe, is it still?
We don't have the flexibility market that I, as a property owner, getting paid for not heating during peak hours. So that is, we are running some trials, but it's not commercial available, and especially the market conditions between the grid and the property owners are not in place. Interesting.
Yeah, I would add to that even if there's not like a revenue mechanism in the market, like pretty much since the time of Thomas Edison, there's still like 2 tariff components that commercial accounts are charged. That's for consumption, but it's also for demand. And the demand component year after year is just shooting up, 10%, 5%, 10%, 20%. And a bill now for a consumer, at least in the US, 60% of the bill has nothing to do with energy. It's about the demand charges that reflect the network charges of the local utility. And since that metric is based on an energy metric, providing guidance to a building of how to lower their peak demand by having intelligence in the building, using LoRaWAN to understand how equipment's operating, to stage the equipment operation in a way that is a flatter profile, that lowers the cost dramatically based on the way the utilities calculate that peak demand, which is pretty similar outside the US as well. So you do have that financial incentive there.
From your point of view, Jeff, is there opportunity? I mean, have you selected the market you're looking at, the multi-occupancy type venue? Is that kind of start point for you, or is that something that that you see the best opportunity in?
Yeah, so we started there because essentially it was the toughest nut to break, so to speak, in terms of the least investment. But if you could solve it, it could be like an enormous opportunity. But through those relationships of those portfolio owners, they have commercial assets, they have industrial assets, and other mixed use assets, and they pushed us into those realms as well because the same type of methodology works really well there. I would even say in those types of buildings, they typically have BMS systems that actually puts them in more control to control that demand. And where another service we offer is like we have a concierge tech desk that's available throughout the relationship of our platform as a service model. So we're there providing guidance to the property management company of how to utilize that BMS. Fact of life is, and you might have heard it in other discussions, that there's a lot of turnover in property management companies. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, and you have a new property manager company, especially during COVID. So they typically refer to their BMS system as a box of lights because they come in and they see the Schneider system, Siemens system. We come in. That's a great system. This is an asset. Like if you press that button at this time, you get this reduction and you get these dollars. And we make it really that simple. And then we like gamify it. We digitize it in our mobile app. It literally gets points for taking action. And at the end of the season, they get Amazon cards and they get awarded and you get a certificate. And it actually works. It gets acknowledgement. And it brings it all full circle.
So the gamification thing really works.
Oh, for sure, it definitely works.
Yeah, I think it's important to include the consumer in the equation. We started at C-level as we discussed earlier, but again, the consumer is the one who drives a lot of the interaction with their energy. So just having a metering solution in place is not enough. It will show you how much you consume, obviously, and how much you spend. But having tools on top, like an actuator that will allow you to control your energy and play with it and actually get rewards for it, for sleeping in a colder room, for example, that can even save 5 to 7% of your energy bill over time, is something that the consumers have now started to realize and started playing around with, just because they're driven by increasing energy prices or sustainability in general, whatever drives their mind. But it's getting the consumer involved in the equation is also very important.
And are the building owners good at that? Do they realize what they have in their hands, as a kind of a tool to engage their customer and put value on their businesses, I guess.
I think their previous idea to engage with owners, with home owners, was to just send them bills for services. Now there is more to it. So you can send them not only bills, but rewards as well, based on the fact that they have engaged with energy consumption and reduced it and helped themselves in the environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, you always wonder who's driving this, who's going to drive this change, but in the end it has to be all sides, right, Stefan? I mean, talk about what you're doing there and how the kind of end user is engaging and whether that kind of comes through a kind of co-creation process, if you have to kind of work out a solution and to a problem, or it's kind of a cookie cutter thing and you kind of drop it in place building upon building now. Do you know what I mean?
We're mostly trying to do really scalable and replicable solutions there. And that is putting out in our system, connecting the BMS and doing the optimization. That is super replicable, and also that is giving the most impact both from an environmental point of view and economical point of view. And that is also why we're trying to address the C-levels or the sustainability officers. Co-creation we're doing as well, but that is more for relation binding and finding new, learning the domain and getting the insights from the people that is running the building. And we are finding some needs and some tools that will enable their work to make it easier or better observability or so on. But the big impact is, of course, the basic offering. The other ones is more like fringes or like giving them handy tools, since in a way we are taking away one tool, since they are not able to increase the heat if a tenant is complaining. Since we are optimizing it, we are trying to give them other tools so they can do their work even better, but not at the cost of just increasing the energy consumption.
Okay, and you kind of all, I think in your slides, I was going to ask about, ROI and this kind of thing. And again, it's a hard one to put a number on, I guess, because, building for building. But it seems to me you were suggesting, I think, Jeff, 18-20%, was it? 15% you as a mark kind of thing. Perhaps, I don't know. And Violetta and Stefan, you were kind of talking 30 to 40 more, that kind of range. And I guess it differs. But is that ROI, that promise of ROI, a thing that is driving this, or is the conversation start point at least around ESG targets and this kind of thing? Violetta, maybe you could.
Yeah, I think ROI is still one of the most important things that drives any decision. But again, to get to there, you can start from sustainability in general and get to the measurable KPIs. And it's good that these technologies that we are using and the solutions that we are giving actually have a measurable KPI. And this is the return on investment. And it's the energy saving on one side. So it's 15 to 35% in our case. But the return on investment is essentially within 1 year in most of the cases. And when I say 1 year, for us, it's really one heating season. And that was last year. So this year, it might be even beforehand because of the rising prices. So it is still a big factor, and having something that you can measure and quantify. But sustainability, a lot of the times, drive the discussion to get to the financial point at the end.
Yeah, okay. Jeff, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely bottom line, gets the deal. But that being said, I would say over the past year, with ESG being much more of a tailwind of, it's not like a want to, it's a have to for many large corporations. They need to implement carbon reduction strategies, which means using less energy. So that drives a lot of decision making that's going on. But also just energy costs tripling in the past year. People were not thinking about this as much. They were pretty much complacent with incredibly low commodity prices for natural gas and electricity, that now, as they open up their bills, especially for the large portfolios, and they see the enormous cost that's coming away, 5%, 10% of savings now is equal to like what in nominal dollars what 30% was. So that's increasing those paybacks, reducing the ROIs at the same time. So it's definitely a lot of incoming for all of us, I would say, on the panel of interest to do something to solve these issues because it's just so costly.
Yeah.
Energy.
Okay, and just, I mean, we're here at the LoRaWAN show, and you're all using LoRa. I just talk about the tech mix. Is it just Stefan? Just start with you. Is it just LoRaWAN, or are you playing with other bits and pieces? Do you come across, or is this the complete system? LoRaWAN is in terms of the connectivity piece, that does it. You know.
Yeah, when we're doing a digital upgrade or digital renovation of a building, and then we're using the LoRaWAN mainly for the connectivity, getting the eyes into the building to see, because what is already deployed in the building, we are harvesting as well. So we are connecting the BMS system, or so we are doing all the backnet, or all those parts as well. But when adding sensors, having the LoRaWAN is really the key in order to get in everywhere, and having it battery driven makes these projects very quickly and cost efficient to do. Then we are, of course, also integrating what's already existing. So it's not a forklift replacement. This is a very small, clever addition and plug-in in order to make a building from being very energy inefficient to be really stepping upwards.
And Violetta, I mean, it seems almost that in this part of the market, at least, you're almost perhaps in the luxury position where you don't have to talk about the technology at all. I mean, I don't know if you go in to the sale and LoRaWAN even gets mentioned every time. Do you know what I mean? I guess it does at some point.
It doesn't, because then we have to start explaining what it is and how it's different from other technologies and why it solves all the problems that you had before with Zigbee, Bluetooth, or other connectivity in general. But in the space of low power communication, LoRaWAN has given us the scalability and the ecosystem we need to offer complete solutions. So essentially, there's people in the market already who are integrators, who know the technology. There's applications, there's the LNS server, there is device makers like us, where we have the luxury to choose any technology. We can provide NB-IoT devices tomorrow if there was the demand for them. But essentially, LoRaWAN has solved that equation of creating a good ecosystem with manufacturers of gateways and hardware and the software end, where you can complete solutions not by one manufacturer in particular, but combining the powers of the ecosystem, which I'm sure is going to come for other technologies as well, but it's not the main selling point. So they wouldn't care if it's LoRaWAN.
Yeah.
They would care that it's scalable.
And I guess most in the industry has gone through all this painful proof of concept, etc. We never do that anymore. This is a proven technology. It works. We're trying also to avoid the technology talk, more what kind of values that we are bringing into the equation and the solutions.
Stefan, I know you used to work at Ericsson, so you've come across from working with 3GPP technology in the NB-IoT thing. I believe you were involved in that in the early days. Just comment on that, you know, the NB-IoT and what they're trying to do, the cellular market, because it is always pitched as a battle. But it seems to me, perhaps, and it seems, you know, with the show that you know, the LoRaWAN community has built up over a period of time, and it's a well-oiled system now, and that's something they don't have. Just talk about, you know, that and what's not available, if you like.
Yeah. I think it is more that different technologies have different sweet spots here. I think for the LoRa space, and especially in the building, we're mainly replacing wireless MBUS and Zigbee and those where you need to have this kind of industrial scale managing of a sensor network in a building. I think for sure NB-IoT and the different 5G solutions will be around if you need a higher bandwidth, if you need wider areas, and also if you need an operator to kind of cater the solutions over vast areas. And you need the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth for the shorter range or more the smart homes solutions. But for a building, and if you're having a property owner that has 100 buildings in a couple of cities, I think LoRaWAN is for sure the most cost efficient and easiest way to having a scalable solution for them that is very unproblematic for them and very cost efficient.
Jeff, thoughts on this? I mean, it seems like a market which is grasping at maturity, dare I say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next phase, and I mean, I'm here. I'm on the hunt for like new LoRaWAN devices, like LoRaWAN thermostats. We're talking right now. Me and Violetta on that. Water is a really big high demand outside the energy world. Water consumption, leak detection, that's a high commodity cost as well. So getting the evolution of LoRaWAN into the water monitoring area, indoor air quality. Talking with Stefan on that of like I source in the hardware and use analytics to make it valuable to the end user and having a UI behind all that. But making buildings more dispatchable, more grid interactive, whether with the thermostats, looking at BMS relays like from Modbus BACnet using LoRaWAN, that's going to be really valuable. EV charging, really valuable because that's also a dispatchable load that to lower your cost and also provide a service to the grid is also valuable. So those are areas I see of evolution for LoRaWAN to be have new features.
Yeah. I wonder if we've got any questions. We're kind of coming up on time. Has anybody got any questions? No, we're good. Okay. I mean, I guess I should ask what your message is really about, smart buildings, which are not really smart buildings, but they might be a little bit kind of smarter if you connect them up a little bit. But just the title of the session is about doing it now. I think that's probably an important point. That this can be retrofitted. It's not the built environment is not smart by definition, and and this is an important part of the IoT kind of chain. It strikes me it doesn't get the attention perhaps that other bits of the market, asset tracking or industrial or whatever. But Jeff, just what should we take from this?
Well, I think it's matured to a level now that it really is, stick and play, as opposed to plug and play. And there are now use cases from the panelists here and others that, it really does save money, it earns money, it reduces emissions, it creates more efficiencies, it's socially engaging. All these good things have happened. Like, it's not like, oh, it's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years now, which you usually would hear at these types of symposiums. No, it's happening. It's achievable. There's real case study, and it's only getting better.
Yeah. Violetta, are you?
My messaging is probably do not be afraid of IoT, because this word still scares a lot of people in the industry when it comes to properties or governments even. It's something that is doable, and it's easy to integrate when you have the right partners. And there are a lot of partners in the space now who are willing to help in every single geography that we work in. And decarbonization is very important because buildings emit over 40% of the CO2 emissions. So dealing with that and IoT, instead of waiting for something new to come or optimizing your BMS only, is not enough. So there's things you can do today. And
I should ask as well, because we talked before, and you mentioned how part of this show is talking about a good game at least, and the proof goes beyond. You have to prove your environmental credentials in the manufacture of the product, in the end of life disposal, this kind of stuff. And those are things that you're looking at, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
Part of
So for us as a manufacturer, we also try to build our devices sustainable, from packaging to design, manufacturing process, everything. That makes them sometimes more expensive for the end consumer, but essentially you cannot be selling just sustainability for the end user and not taking care of it internally. So it's something important for us.
And Stefan, just to perhaps finish with you, I mean, are you kind of is the pace picking up? Are buildings owners getting greener and richer at the same time? Are you getting richer at the same time? Do you know what I mean? Is business good? I mean, have you noticed that kind of uptick in?
Yeah, we see a big uptake, even if a lot of the retail or the real estate companies are quite conservative, but there are such a huge amount of buildings that need to be upgraded, and I think it is a right market to address. You don't just need to monitor it. You can contact any of the partners on the stage or other in the ecosystem to help you also to control it. And there are direct savings and a really good way forward. And I think sustainability is a key issue that everybody has to address. And also, nobody are investing in non-sustainable businesses, and that goes for the real estate as well. So it is not just greenwashing, but it is pure savings and making an impact.
Okay, thank you. Any questions last minute? No? Okay, well, I'd like to thank Jeff from Logical Buildings, Violetta from Employment, and Stefan from Talkpool. Thank you all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Thanks.